I've gone to some of the commissioners' meetings and I've seen the presentations on the library. I think that is not number one on our list, but I'm never going to say that we don't need a library. But I think we've got to prioritize where does that fall in the big scheme of things when we're looking at the resources that are going to allow us to increase the wages for county employees. And that is something that I am very much in favor of. The animal ordinance, that's a hard one for me because again, that's going to require resources. That requires the county, if we were able to ever get a county shelter, that requires resources, a lot of resources. I'm an animal lover, and you can ask anybody, I bring them in. So I do see the need. There is a need, but is it the need that we need to tackle right now? So I'm never going to say no. I would be very open to some suggestions in how we would allocate the monies, and that's looking at the budget. And that's one of the things that I haven't had the opportunity to do is to sit down and see where are we putting this? Where could we pull money from? It's a tight budget. It was just approved, $15.2 million. That's a tight budget. I am very pro law enforcement, and anybody that has ever talked to me knows that. But I'm also for all county employees. One of the biggest things was the jailer jobs. And I said, well, I want to go see what they do in a day. So I asked if I could go work as a jailer, as a volunteer, and I did. I got up at 6:30, went there, I worked an entire shift until 7:30. I worked on a court day so that I could see what it was like to transport. That's probably one of the hardest jobs I have ever seen. The responsibility that jailer has is tremendous, but it's a trickle effect. The one thing that I can say is what I saw was a team. They were very much together. They were very much on top of everything. When I look at our EMS, our emergency management system, I see even with our law enforcement detectives that are working huge shifts, but they have 2 jobs. And that's to sustain their family. And I feel like that we have to make that difference.
The library is an issue that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. And to be quite frank, it's not a big issue with a lot of other people in the county. So I would like to partner and help them in whatever way we can. And that's where it's going to be difficult because they're going to have to, that library, the committee, and those people are going to have to come up with a lot of money, how we can help them in grant, fundraising, anything we can do. I'm all in favor of that. I don't think that the county is ready right now to build a $7 million, $5 million library. We have a $15 million budget a year, so that's a third of our budget. Animal control was brought up before I got on the board. I heard some of the board members talk about it. It's a hot button issue. People on both sides come in and do that and have spoke very adamantly on different sides of that issue. I think it's important we take a step in that direction. Possibly even we could start with small steps, is getting all dogs licensed, registered, tagged. That way you would have a identification tag, maybe a rabies tag around every dog's neck that is traced back through the veterinarian or whoever it is that gives them those shots. So at least start a process of trying to get this under control, or dog issue under control. I know personally, I live close by, and there are dogs that come across the hill and come down my road and cross my deck sometimes that belong to a neighbor who are not taken care of. I feel sorry for them. They are covered with mange. You can tell they have extended bellies and full of worms, and there's a lot of issues that go with that. But I think at least we should start. I don't think that, having your dog tagged or registered, showing that it has had its rabies shots or anything like that, is asking a lot of dog owners. And so I think that would be one of our first steps, and then we'll just keep going. If that brings in a little money, maybe we can put a little bit more money toward other things until we get to a point where there maybe is animal control and animal shelter. And I've been through 2 budget cycles so far. And I've been a strong voice, I hope, or I think I have been, for pay increases and pay salaries for all of our county employees. First year I was on the board, we gave a 1.5% raise, and that was across the board to everybody. And the only really negative things that I heard about that from anybody was, well, some of the people at the very top didn't need it. The people at the bottom maybe needed more. And I took that into consideration, and I thought a lot about that. And so this past budget cycle, what we did was we gave an across-the-board raise, the same amount for everybody. Everybody got a $500 raise. Now those at the top of the pay scale, that raise wasn't as big for them. But the people at the bottom pay scale, it may have been a little bit bigger than what they would have gotten at a 1.5. So I thought that was fair, equitable, and I haven't heard anybody complain about that. So I'm in favor of, as we can, increasing our pay for our county employees. We'll always have trouble with retention of our county employees, and I guess a lot of places do, and a lot of counties throughout the state do. For us, we're next to the reservation, the Eastern Band. We can't pay what Cherokee pays. We can't. So we have to at least make an effort to try and show that we care, that we're doing the best we can, make Swain County a good place to work, an enjoyable place to work, and show our employees that at least we care. We're trying to do all we can do.
I don't think we need a new library, because the one we have is sufficient enough for our county. It's in town, they've got enough parking. I mean, I know that people has contributed towards the new library, but I can't see that. I'd rather see them build a new shelter for our animals, because of the fact that the one we have is not big enough to, they can't take in but very few. So I would like to have a county maintained shelter. That would be a wonderful thing. And also I would like to see a control ordinance. In town, if you don't have your dog on a leash, like if you're visiting here or whatever, you either buy a leash and put that dog on it or else. We are losing a lot of employees that way. They come here and train, which costs us about $30,000 a year, or $30,000 to train them. Then if they can find a better job in Georgia or in another county that pays a little bit more, then they're automatically going to go where the higher pay is. And I say give them enough to where they have the incentive to stay. Because we need our sheriff's department in Swain County. They shouldn't have to worry about our people having to leave Swain County to go somewhere else for better pay when we could afford to give them a little bit more pay. I'm not saying give them mega bukus of money, but give them an incentive to stay. I think an officer making $12 an hour is nowhere near enough. $15 an hour should be. I mean, put a cap at 15 until you see how it's going to work out. Then, later on, if they deserve another dollar on the hour, 2 or 3 years down the road, give it to them. But with the way the price of stuff is, they can't make it on $12 an hour.
I've met with the library committee and the board of directors, and I'm very impressed with what they've done, and I'm very supportive of what they're trying to achieve. They're well aware of what their funding problems are, and they're trying to address those. I'm going to support them in any way we possibly can. It'll go back to this master plan, land use plan that I'm talking about, the long range plan. But I fully support their efforts, and I admire the effort they put into this. So, as far as the animal control ordinance, I think number one, it's needed. It has to be reasonable. We need to be concerned about our neighbors. If you have an animal, to me it's like having a child. I've always had animals. You take care of your animals. I believe in having the animal registered. I believe having a number where you can be reached if your pet happens to be lost, that person can be contacted. I think if you've got a dangerous dog, you've got to control that dangerous dog. If you've got a dog that barks all the time, disturbing the neighbors, you got to have a noise ordinance. There has to be ways that we can all live with this. So I'm not suggesting that you have to have a leash law or anything like that, but there do need to be reasonable controls over animals for the animals' sake. Being a commissioner is not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. Now, if the people of Swain County want their employees, such as the police officers, law enforcement officers, to have higher salaries, they may be looking at higher taxes. There's no dancing around it. If the status quo is to continue, then it's going to continue. But to achieve objectives, you have to be able to sacrifice. And so I'm all for people making a living wage, for sure. So I'll support in any way I can improving the wages for our county employees.
You know, I say if we build a library, it has to be a multi-use facility. It's not just about putting books in there, but it's about bringing in an IT room, about bringing in different rooms that we can use, maybe for some elderly stuff or some youth things, youth oriented, be more like a community event center library, you know. But I think that's the aspect, because I think that libraries are awesome. I love, you know, the books are there and people love books, but there's also other ways to be able to read. You can read on your phone, you can read on your iPad, and people are doing this too. But you got to get to a place where you can download that. You got to get to a place where you can utilize some Wi-Fi, some high-speed internet. So also for the library, there's also community events. I know that happened at the library that's right behind us here, that they bring in musicians and they do like some jam sessions, and I think that's awesome. So we need to make a space for that. And I understand that a lot of times when we build, we're looking at the aesthetics, but I think the functionality is the best thing. Aesthetics is nice, but putting your money in the the functionality of it, making sure that it's benefiting not just one group, but it's benefiting the whole community as a whole. The animal control ordinance has been a thing I've been hearing this for years now. I don't know if there's really a simple answer to this unless you invest your money into a building. You've got to staff it, you've got to heat it, you've got to cool it, you've got to manage it, you've got to get people in place set up to actually administer the ordinance. You can't just have an ordinance without people administering it, and that doesn't work. We throw an ordinance up and that sounds good, but if there's no teeth in the ordinance, if there's no accountability in the ordinance will never work. So my idea on the animal ordinance is, maybe we do need it. I don't know if we need it as bad as what we think we need it. I would have to look more at is it feasible? Is it worth us investing to make this thing work? Can it work? Is it just an ordinance? Because if it's just an ordinance, we can do that overnight. But what is that? How do we work that? What do we make that look like? How can we fund that in the long term? Is it going to be effective? Pay for county employees. So I'm a county employee. I would not get an increase because I work part-time. So that's out of the picture. I know some people say, oh, he works for the county. Yeah, but look, I've been here for 14 years. Been in this county for 14 years. I saw groceries go up. I saw gas go up. I saw any kind of expenditures, school systems, the increase on certain things within school. I'm buying school supplies for 4 kids. So my budget has dramatically, as a family, went up, and we've got over 200 employees in the county. And in saying that, one of the things I really thought about with increasing the salary, it increases the economy in the county. Because if I take 200 people and I kind of get them up to where they need to be, then what happens is, and I'm not affecting just 200 people, I'm affecting 200 people with maybe 2 kids and parents and a brother and a sister. So this thing spirals and it gets bigger and bigger. And then what happens is if people start spending more money within the county, within our community, they're living happier, they're not struggling. This is the big thing to me, because I believe if you invest in people, you'll always see a return.